Yo, what's up? In this video, I'm going to be talking about hair. I think hair is actually super, super important, especially for males. Like, it makes a massive difference on your appearance. And especially recently, like, I'm talking the last 50, 100 years, balding rates have increased significantly. And the whole scientific consensus about it being your scalp susceptibility to DHT, if you've heard about, like, androgen, I don't know how true that is just because it doesn't really make sense to be evolving that quickly. So basically, I've done some research into balding and we're going to look at it. This is an unconventional approach, but I believe that's a good thing because obviously the conventional approaches aren't really working because people are balding faster and faster, right? So if you're interested and you're open-minded, stick around and I'll tell you what I believe to be the truth about hair loss and what you can do to prevent it. So let's get into it. So firstly, just something that's sort of obvious but often overlooked is that hair is actually a living metabolic tissue. Like it's alive, it gets nutrients delivered to it, it grows in these phases. Hair growth isn't just magic or genetic. It will depend on the blood flow to the hair follicles and to the scalp, the hormonal signaling, the availability of nutrients to grow the hair, and low inflammation. It's not purely cosmetic, it's a reflection of internal health because obviously if you have good internal health, you have better blood flow, you have lower inflammation, you have better nutrients, and you have better hormones. So it makes sense. And this growth cycle, I think I'm going to explain it later, but basically anagen is when it grows, and as it matures, it will go into this catagen, which is like a transition phase, and then telogen, which is when it rests and just sits there, and then eventually it will fall out and a new one will grow in its place over here. And that's just the hair growth cycle. So, firstly, we go to androgenic alopecia. So that's what I was saying at the start. Androgen meaning hormone. I think maybe it means male hormone. I think it just means hormonal. But basically, the logic is that this dihydrotestosterone, DHT, which is a product of testosterone. If you look at the whole how hormones are built, they start off with cholesterol, and eventually testosterone gets turned into DHT. And so the logic of androgenic alopecia, what like the mainstream community says, is that your scalp has these receptors on it, with like DHT receptors, and so some people are just born with higher sensitivity to DHT, or they have more receptors, or the receptors are more responsive to DHT, and so that will miniaturize the follicles and that will cause hair loss. That's basically the consensus. So why I find this is problematic, a couple things. So firstly, you have people from tribes. Like if you look at this guy and this guy, like who has higher testosterone? Obviously this guy, and this guy's like probably what 70 or 80, but he's still got a full head of hair, whereas this guy's maybe 30 or 40 and he's already balding, right? And I understand that total testosterone levels versus DHT sensitivity is different, but it seems sort of random that this whole sensitivity is just completely genetic again because you can have people well into their older ages living a natural lifestyle who aren't balding, and you see people increasingly getting more and more bald. So if it was about sensitivity, surely natural selection would have reduced the DHT sensitivity, and why would it suddenly be increasing over 100 years? Because genes don't change that fast in the species. They don't change over 100 years, where suddenly the prevalence goes up and up and up. Secondly, there's a thing called epigenetics, which basically it's like the logic of changing your gene expression without changing your genes. So I made a video on epigenetics if you're interested. I'll only go into really brief detail here, but basically, how would I describe this? I guess a really, really simplistic way of describing this is I have this card. I got it from like this farmer's market, and so it says Hunter Bell Dairy Company on it. If I cover up that with my finger, now you can't read Hunter Bell Dairy Company, even though it's still there. You can't read it, and so if I told you to read this card, you would be missing that point of information. The same thing is sort of true with epigenetics. Basically, the genes are still there, but your body like covers them up so they don't express themselves. So like if I have a predisposition to balding, the gene is still there, but it doesn't get activated. So I don't end up going bald even if the gene is there. So again, watch the video if you're curious on how you can modify your epigenetics, not just for balding, but in general. But yeah, that's another key point. And again, I would say it's more got to do with chronic inflammation. So, firstly, like I said, balding is increasing in prevalence. So, why would your scalp sensitivity have a sudden spike over the last 100 years? And second thing, chronic inflammation is a very, very recent phenomenon. And I was even reading this study, I think I mentioned in another video, which said that chronic inflammation is the root cause of almost all modern diseases. And I feel like logically you could apply that to hair loss as well, but it literally linked it to everything from obesity to heart disease to diabetes to like age-related diseases to like all these things. And so I would say, why not hair loss, right? So now we're going to look at the nutrients and vitamins for optimal hair growth. So firstly, vitamin D is absolutely crucial. So if you remember the growth phases of hair, the anagen, the telogen, the catagen. So the anagen phase being like the initial growth phase, determining the thickness and responsible for active hair growth. When there is a deficiency in vitamin D, the anagen phase gets shorter and pushes these hair follicles prematurely into the telogen phase. So then they go into the resting phase too early, causing excessive shedding and leading to thinner hair. Also, when there is no sufficient vitamin D, it affects the growth of the follicle and results in androgenic alopecia and alopecia areata, which are both hair loss conditions. One is autoimmune and one is supposedly the DHT thing, which, like I said, there's no solid evidence for that. And basically, either way, vitamin D deficiency is causing, or at least impacting or influencing the risk of these hair loss conditions. Apart from vitamin D, there's also iron, which creates hemoglobin, which will deliver nutrients to your hair follicles, zinc, which helps your immune system and growth, protein. Your hair is literally built out of protein, and so severe protein deficiency, you can't build your hair without protein if it's made out of protein. Like you can't build a house without bricks, right? Or you can't build a brick house without bricks. And omega-3s are useful in inflammation modulation. And so, for example, if you look at beef liver being like a super nutrient dense food, you've got it's an excellent source of iron, phosphorus, protein, and zinc. So that's already iron, zinc, protein. Um, omega-3s, I don't think there are omega-3s in here, to my knowledge. But you can get omega-3s from pretty much most animal fat, most servings of animal fat. So eat more animal foods. Sorry, my voice is like kills me when I film these videos all in a row. So next is stress and cortisol. So this guy from Harvard University studied the adrenal glands, which is what produces stress hormones. And so they removed the adrenal glands from mice, and that led to rapid cycles of hair regrowth. And hair follicle regeneration didn't slow as the mice grew older. And when they started feeding them corticosteroids, so like cortisol basically, they restored the natural hair cycle. So as in it went back to balding. And similarly, if they subjected the mice to mild stress over many weeks, it increased corticosteroid, reduced hair growth, and hair follicles remained in this resting phase. Again, remains in this telogen phase, which leads to more hair loss, which supports the role of corticosteroid in inhibiting hair regrowth, right? So pretty interesting. And this is like, if you want to read this, this is like the mechanism by which they reckon it is caused by. But it's not really that relevant for you if you want to just figure out improving your hair growth. Next is sleep and circadian timing. Super underrated. Sleep impacts literally every single body system ever. So your growth hormone will be pulsing at night. Melatonin will be influencing your hair cycling. And so if your sleep is chronically disrupted, you have systemic stress, and that will lead to worse hair growth. And apart from that, it has this whole cortisol thing as well, also affecting your sleep. So there's all these impacts of sleep that are just affecting your hair growth. So get your sleep. Next is like the shampoo and like hair care products. So most commercial shampoos, they will dry your scalp, they'll disrupt the barrier of your scalp, and they will increase irritation. Like personally for me, when I was using shampoos, my hair would be all itchy all the time. I'd be like scratching it constantly. It'd be super, super uncomfortable. And I just really didn't enjoy it. My hair didn't look nice. I'd have to use shampoo like every day. It was not a good cycle. And so this will lead to inflammation, which again, in my opinion, is a far more likely driver of hair loss and shedding due to its links of stress, poor diet, and vitamin D deficiency than the DHT thing. So I would actually make the argument that a lot of these hair care products are actually causing balding rather than being good for your hair. And so I'm going to lose some people here, but I stand by it. This has worked wonders for me. Shampoo alternatives, use egg yolks, raw egg yolks. All right, if you haven't clicked off, that's great. Egg yolks are super, super good. So firstly, if you remember the nutrients you need, vitamin D, iron, zinc, protein, omega-3s, those are the ones for hair growth. If you know what topical treatment is, that means applying it directly on the thing. You're literally applying all of the nutrients you need for hair growth directly onto your hair. Doesn't that make complete sense? Like, if you're not grossed out by this, just think about it logically. You're literally applying all of the nutrients your hair needs to grow directly onto your hair. What do you think will happen? Like, honestly, if you think about it, so EPA, DHA, no, where the hell's my cursor gone? EPA, DHA, those are omega-3s, by the way, in case you didn't know. Apart from that, we have got some vitamin D, we've got iron, we've got protein, obviously. Uh, what else do we have? I feel like there is zinc in here, but I can't seem to find. Oh, here you go. Zinc is here. Protein's there, obviously. I think, yeah, that is everything. So you've literally got that. I can tell you from personal experience, the first time I washed my hair with egg yolks, I never went back. You can also go super fancy. Like some people, they put like raw butter in it. I know there's this one African tribe where all they do is raw butter and their hair is like super good and they don't lose their hair, so you can try that. Raw butter is in like the butter comes from unpasteurized milk. I've put like ghee butter in before, which is like clarified butter. I've tried that. Um, I think I've read somewhere, don't quote me on this because I don't really remember, but I believe that raw butter has a similar lipid profile to your natural hair's oil, your sebum, by like over 90%, which if that's true, that's crazy. Like the butter is almost identical to your hair's oil. I've also used like rosemary oil before in the past. I don't do it currently, but you can do that for smell if you think your hair will smell like eggs, which it doesn't really, but there's like a really like faint smell. So if you want to like cover that up, you can use like rosemary oil. What else? I've heard some people talk about putting turmeric on your head. Supposedly it's anti-inflammation, but for me, like my scalp goes all yellow and I don't really like that, so I sort of stopped doing that. And what else is there? I feel like there's some other things. I've seen some people do like raw milk. Oh, raw honey. People put raw honey in it, which has lots of good enzymes. The problem for me is it just got stuck in my hair, and like my hair would stick together, so I stopped doing that. And so I would add the raw milk to try to make it more liquidy to like reduce the sticking. But yeah, one important thing, a lot of these people tell you to leave it in your hair for like a long time, and that's probably good to let the nutrients absorb. But what happened to me was it would start to solidify in my hair, and then I'd have like all these little clumps of like white stuff, and I thought it was dandruff, but it was actually because I used to have bad dandruff. But what it actually was just this frozen solid or like dried up egg slash milk, whatever mixture in my hair. And so it gave me the illusion of really bad dandruff and the texture of really bad dandruff, even though I didn't have it. And so just recently I discovered just using the raw egg yolks and putting them in and letting them absorb for like 5 minutes and washing them out did me so much better than having this fancy ass formula with like the ghee butter and the raw milk and whatever else, the raw honey, and I left it in for like 2 or 3 hours. And then it like solidified and it just looked like I had bad dandruff. So I actually had bad dandruff, and that's how I found out about this stopping shampoo, because I found that shampoo was actually making my dandruff worse. It was exacerbating it. And so these raw eggs have really cured my dandruff. But make sure you don't leave it in your hair too long to get solid, because then, yeah, it will just look like you have dandruff and feel like you have dandruff. And that's what I thought I had. And I ain't like trying to brag on nothing, but like I wouldn't be going around telling people you put raw eggs in your hair unless they're like your mates or whatever. But I've got plenty compliments. Even just last night, some girl like complimented me on my hair. She said I have very pretty hair, which obviously it feels very nice. And never once did I get a compliment on my hair before using these raw egg yolks. So if she says it, unless you know that things are gonna go well, don't say something like, "Oh yeah, thanks. I just use raw egg yolks." So people treat you like a weirdo. So I can't lie. Again, unless like you trust them, I would just keep that part to yourself. But it does work wonders. Trust me. I know I've rambled on a little bit, but it really is super, super good. So if you're still watching, like, you've unlocked a level of hair care which most people won't, because they won't consider this. Next is air pollutants. Obviously, if there's little particles floating around the air and they get stuck in your head, of course that can cause inflammation. Inflammation obviously leads to all these problems. You have oxidative stress, possible follicle damage, etc. But apart from that, if your hair is a healthy, if your skin, so your scalp skin, if you have a healthy barrier, you will like bacteria and pollutants will be reflected off of. They won't be able to penetrate as easily. But if your skin is damaged, like these things can get into it more. So it's sort of a negative feedback loop because the more damaged it is, the more these things can penetrate, leading to more damage, leading to more penetration, etc. So again, by using these raw egg yolks directly onto your head, again, you're nourishing your head, your skin. It's like a skincare routine for your head, which will help prevent these bacteria from entering. Shower filters, also a good shout. I have a shower filter at home. Basically, the logic is, at least again for me in Sydney, the water coming out of the tap is like you've got microplastics and you've got chlorine, both of which you don't really want. And so that can affect your hair texture, it can penetrate your skin, it can potentially dry your hair. And so using a shower filter can improve your scalp comfort potentially, can reduce your exposure to these toxins. And yeah, it's something I would recommend doing because I don't think it's too expensive. And obviously, you don't want to go bald. Why not just make it, even if it's like a 5% increase, it doesn't really impact you, just buy it. Now we're going to look at like some cultural stuff, just because there's so much like shit nowadays about, oh, bro, I can't be asked like the shit about, like growing, like caring about your hair, caring about your appearance as being like feminine or whatever. Like, bro, just look about historically, Vikings depicted with long hair, Genghis Khan, Mongol warriors had long hair. In the Edo period of Japan, having these like top knots, you literally could only have it if you were a warrior. If you were like a peasant, you weren't allowed to do it. You had to cut your hair short. And many societies would actually cut prisoners' hair as humiliation. For example, prison, the army. This is Auschwitz. So you literally have all of these things. Like historically, hair would symbolize status, strength, tribal identity, freedom, and the quality signals your youth, low stress, hormonal stability, and nutrient adequacy. So therefore, it's literally like a sexual signal because you're signaling that you're well nourished, you have good hormones, you're young, and you have status, strength, etc. Like, bro, I used to. This photo is like a little while ago, so you can see my hair's a little bit like it's not as long as it is now. But personally, like I said, I never used to get compliments on my hair when I cut it short and when I was using the shampoos, but now I get several pretty frequently, and it's not even like crazy long yet or nothing, and I still get like quite a few compliments. So if you have hair like this, I would recommend growing it out. Like worst case scenario, you can just cut it off again, but you might, if you've never grown your hair long, you should at least try it out. Like I used to think it was feminine or whatever to have long hair, and so I would cut my hair like this. It was like I remember actually I'd be watching Hamza, and I remember watching this video, and he said, it was like one of the self improvement like best things you can do as a young man or something like that. And he said you should cut your hair every 2 weeks, or like 2 to 4 weeks. Make sure you have a fresh fade. So I'd be like, and every single time I get a haircut, I'd walk out of it being like, oh bro, this is so shit. It looks so bad. But I'd always just think it was the hair, like the barber's fault. So I'd go to a new barber each time, rather than thinking it was actually just the short hair just doesn't look as good as the longer hair. I didn't really figure that out for a long time. But this photo is not even that old. I think this photo was February last year. So it was about a year ago. And this photo is maybe December. So this was pretty much 1 year ago today, give or take. And I think it's fair to say that I look better now than I do in this photo. If you think otherwise, fine. But from the reception I've received from females, which is obviously what I care about, personally, I'll be doing better now than I was back then. So I would suggest growing it out. So yeah, this whole like short hair masculine thing is, if you have like a super masculine like skull, like a super, square skull, super defined cheekbones, jawbone, then getting a buzz cut, you'll still look good. But most people look better with long hair anyway. So it's more so people who have short hair have masculine faces rather than cutting your hair short will give you a masculine face. It's usually you have a masculine face, so you cut your hair short. You know what I mean? Because again, I don't think I look too masculine over here despite having a shorter hairstyle, right? And then, just some celebrity examples like Jason Momoa. I think most people think he looks better here, even though he has short hair here, and he obviously has a masculine face, but I still think he looks better here. Brad Pitt is a famous example. He's the same age here and here. Again, in my opinion, I think he looks better, way better here. He looks a lot healthier. Obviously, some people disagree. I think he looks better here. I think Jason Momoa looks better here. You look at, oh fuck, Johnny Depp. Again, this one's more close because like the hair is it's not layered as well. It's a bit like messy. But even still, I would say he looks better here personally. Obviously, there's some individual differences. But at the end of the day, at least you can say that this short hair doesn't make them super masculine. So it's more got to do with the face shape. Like at best, if you don't think the long hair makes them look better, at least you can say that it's more got to do with their face, right? So like I said, realistically, the strong skull is masculine, not the buzz cut. And so I would recommend growing it out. So why do I think that men are growing bald? Just to like do a quick recap here. We have chronic stress, poor sleep, bad shit diet, micronutrient deficiency, environmental pollutants, and this may influence expression, not override genetics. So again, from what I was talking about in what's it called? Epigenetics. Epigenetics, like it's more got to do with your gene expression. Because really, what does it matter if I'm genetically coded for baldness? I have a predisposition and you don't. But because I practice the right habits and you don't, you end up going bald. Like who cares about the genetics? It's more about the expression, right? And so obviously this is the stages of hair loss. And yeah, this is just a study on epigenetics. Again, watch my video on it. I actually explain this in more detail. You can just pause it if you're curious, but I would recommend watching the video on it. And yeah, lastly, there's this guy on YouTube, Self Maxer. He's really, really good about when you think about hair health and hair care. Like, I didn't get my ideas from him, but I definitely did watch quite a few of his videos when I sort of formed my own ideas. He talked about putting the turmeric on the hair, which I don't recommend personally, and he recommended a few things which I don't, but he's definitely shaped the way that I've thought about long hair. And yeah, I think he's a really good source of information because his whole channel's about hair health. So if you're curious about hair health, you want to like further really go deep in this topic, I'd recommend him. It's like a Self Maxer. So yeah, have a look at his channel. He's got really good hair and he has a really good story because he was actually balding quite badly before and then he fixed it through like doing lots and lots of research into hair care and health, and now he has really, really nice hair, maybe the best hair on YouTube, right? So I would consider watching this guy. And yeah, that's about it. There's a bit of a longer video today, a bit of waffle from me, but if you're still watching, I appreciate it. Give it a try. Like I said, worst case, you can just cut it short again. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. Catch you in the next video. Cheers.